Welcome to this talk organized by the English Corner, Asociación de Profesores de Inglés de Bahía Blanca, and Juan XXIII English Department. Today we have a special speaker, Annie Altamirano. She's special because she's from Argentina, and besides, she was a teacher here at our institution. And more than that, she's also a graduate of Instituto Juan XXIII. So we are absolutely delighted with her presence, especially because this year we are celebrating our 60th anniversary. So thanks, Annie, a lot. We are really proud of your achievements. Now Analia is gonna give the formal introduction to this talk.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce you to Annie Altamirano. Annie Altamirano, MA in ELT and Applied Linguistics from the University of London, is a teacher, teacher trainer, and materials writer with over 30 years' experience in English language teaching. She has taught students of all ages and levels, and her experience includes teaching, teacher training, and academic management posts in Latin America, Europe, and Asia. She is part of a Cambridge mentor team. As an author, she has published extensively with all major international publishers. Her latest published work includes Cambridge Global English Teachers Resource First and Second editions, Cambridge Grammar and Writing Skills Levels 7 to 9 Teachers Resource, and Now I Know Level 4 published by Pearson. Since her early years as a teacher, she has integrated the use of film, art, poetry, and diverse visual elements in her classes and materials. She is currently the Vice President of TESO Spain. She shares her ideas in her workshops and on the posts on her website, Blogging Crazy. So thank you, Annie, for being with us, and welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, Analia. It's lovely for me to be here today and to be part of this celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Department of English of Juan XXIII, my second home for many years, both as a student and as a teacher. And well, I'd like to thank Gabriela Tena, the director of the English department, and Antonia, director of the English Corner, Analia Leiros, president of APIBB, and our moderator today, Agustina Negretti. And thank you all for being here with me today. It's also a very special event for me to be celebrating this anniversary with all of you. Okay, so shall we start? All right, so today I would like to have a look at what differentiation is and what it means in the classroom. So I will give you some background information, and then I'll focus on some techniques and strategies that you can use to support your learners. As we all know, and of course, we all experience the same thing. Students arrive with a variety of mixed abilities, wants, needs, and more importantly, they exhibit different lengths, different strengths, styles, interests, language skills, of which we need to be aware of. So let me share my screen now. Let's see, where was it? Let's see, here we are. Can you see it? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, to face this challenge, we can implement what is called...
No, but Annie, we can't see that you have opened the screen, but you have to press on the... Yes.
All right. All right. Same thing that happened before, I think. So let's see. Because I'm supposed to have it open, but all right. These are the things of El Directo. Let's see. All right. Now, let's go back and And here it is. Right. This works in a different way from Zoom. That's why. So slideshow from the beginning. There we are. Can you see it now?
Yes, yes, we
Yes.
can.
Oh, great. All right. So in order to face this challenge, we can implement what is called differentiated instruction. Yes, however, there are a lot of myths about what differentiated instruction is, and these and others may come to mind. Many people think that differentiated instruction is the same as individualized instruction. No, it is not. It is true that differentiated instruction offers multiple ways of learning. And although it aims at attending to students as individuals, it doesn't assume a separate assignment for each learner, not at all. Also, differentiation is not chaotic. The fear of losing control of student behavior has always been a major concern of all teachers, regardless where they teach. In an effectively differentiated classroom, orderly flexibility is a defining feature. Also, differentiation is not another way to provide homogeneous grouping. Flexible grouping accommodates students who are strong in some areas and weak in others. The goal is to have students work with a wide variety of peers and with tasks that are designed to draw on the strengths of all group members, but also to share students' areas of need. Also, differentiation is not another way to provide homogeneous grouping, and it's not tailoring the same suit of clothes. I mean, it's not letting students volunteer to answer questions or grading some students a little harder because they are more confident. Such modifications show an awareness of differentiation, but it is not enough to address significant learning issues. And also, it is by no means just for learners who struggle. Students who have identified learning challenges, such as students with deficit attention, visual or hearing impairment, etc., are likely, of course, to need extra scaffolding on a regular basis. But let's not forget those more able students, students who learn quickly, who think deeply and make meaningful connections across content areas. They also need challenges on a regular basis to grow academically as they should. So, what is the reality of differentiation? Differentiation is relevant, rigorous, proactive. It is designed to be robust enough to challenge all learners in the classroom. It is more equitative than quantitative. A learner who has demonstrated mastery of one skill is ready to stop practicing that skill and move on to a subsequent one. So, adjusting the quantity of an assignment will be less effective than altering the nature of the assignment to match the actual needs of the student. Differentiation is also rooted in assessment. Diagnostic pre-assessment routinely takes place at the beginning of a unit to throw light on the individual learner's needs and also on their interests. Throughout the unit, we can assess students' readiness levels, their interests, their approaches to learning, and we can design learning experiences that are based on the latest understanding of their needs. Also, differentiation is taking multiple approaches to content, process, and product. By differentiating these three basic elements, we can offer different approaches to what learners learn, how they learn, and how they demonstrate their learning. Of course, differentiation is student-centered. it goes without saying. And it is a blend of whole class, group, and individual instruction. And it's organic and dynamic because students and teachers learn together. The ongoing collaboration between teachers and learners is necessary to refine learning opportunities so that they are effective for each learner. So, how can we define differentiation, if you wish? Differentiation is never something that we add onto a lesson. It's something that runs through the planning stage, the teaching stage, and the assessment stage of our teaching cycle, if you wish. Therefore, it is what we do to help learners make progress regardless their starting point. It means ensuring that all learners, no matter their ability, interest, context, have the support and the scaffolding they need to meet or exceed the learning intentions. This is very important. Now, how can we differentiate? Let's see. At the heart of classroom practice, we have classroom practice in differentiation, is the modification of three basic elements, which is content, process, and product. But these are by no means the only aspects of a lesson cycle that we can differentiate. We can also differentiate by questioning, by grouping, and by pace. And we're going to see that. And these are not isolated items. These are frequently used in combination and alongside other techniques. Now, let's see. Differentiating by content. Content is what the students need to know, what they need to understand and do something with. When we identify these outcomes, we also shape the assessments by how learners can demonstrate what they understand. So how can we do this? For example, and this is essential, use assessment tools. And this is not testing, but assessing, learning about their the gaps in their learning, for example. One tool is KWL, and I'm going to go back to this later on. Another way is using multiple texts and combining them with a variety of supplementary materials, which will increase the chances of reaching more students. We can also present contents in different modes and with different support systems. What does it mean? For example, giving different learners different resources at different levels of complexity towards, and this is crucial, the same learning outcome. We can use note-taking organizers that will help them, for example, follow the ideas in a text, recorded materials, wikis, blogs, class websites, pictures, stories, charts, artwork, body language, movement, lots of different materials that can help and support learning. If you have, for example, if you are working with a reading text, and the reading text is long, it's considerable, you can divide it into manageable chunks. You can also split it into different sections with graphic organizers. You can also simplify or, of course, pre-teach vocabulary. Yes, there are lots of tools. I'm going to show you some of those later on. There are tools that you can use to simplify a text. Rewriting the material in a simpler language, simplifying the structures. You can also use stepped activities, that is to say, tasks that contain a series of separate elements and the difficulty of these elements gradually increases. All the learners will be challenged. For example, suppose that we have we are working on rainforests, suppose. So one activity can be write a letter to a friend explaining what rainforests are and where they are found. Another activity with a little bit more challenge can be draw a diagram explaining how rainforests develop, and label the diagram and write an explanation. And yet another step could be create a table outlining arguments in favor and against deforestation. Another thing that you can do is use worksheets and scaffolding cards. So, for example, suppose if you have an activity like a listening, and I'm going to explain this further on. If you have an activity like listening, you can simplify the activity by dividing it into steps. I'm going to show you some examples later on. Now, the first thing I mentioned here is the use of assessment tools, right? Okay, this is a KWL chart, and I'm sure that many of you are familiar with this. So here we can, using this, we can find out what the students bring to the class and what the learning gaps are. So at the beginning of the lesson, you can draw a 3-column table on a large sheet of paper or on the board. I prefer the large sheet of poster paper because then you can put it on one side of the classroom and bring it back at the end. So in the first column, the K column, learners are going to write what they know or they think they know about, suppose, dinosaurs. In the second column, for example, you have dinosaurs. They lived 1 million years ago. They were very big. They ate meat and others ate plants. A meteorite killed all the dinosaurs. T-Rex is a famous dinosaur. So you see that we can do it with small kids, not necessarily with advanced students. In the second column, students write what they would like to learn about dinosaurs, what I want to know. That's the W. And they write that in the form of questions. For example, when did dinosaurs die? Which is the biggest dinosaur? What color were the dinosaurs? Did dinosaurs lay eggs? Did dinosaurs have feathers? At the end of the lesson or at the end of the unit, you will decide that. You review the questions in the last column, the what I learned. That's the L in the chart. So what learners do is they review, they revisit the questions, and they decide if there are any questions that remain unanswered, and thinking back on what they have learned in the unit or in the lesson, can they predict what the answers will be to the unanswered questions? Now, with older learners, you can improve this table by adding a second layer. So we have them reflect and say what they know or they think they know about the topic. But then they have to say how they learned this. And this is an important extension because students become aware of how they learned the information. They realize where learning opportunities lie. It can be because somebody in the class mentioned it, because they read a newspaper article, they watched a documentary film, whatever. But they have to say where they learned this. Then, to the question, what do we learn about, or what I want to know about this, we can add how we want to learn. Again, valuable information, because in this way we will learn what works and what doesn't work for the students in terms of the procedural aspects of learning. And at the end of the lesson, or at the end of the unit or the particular learning cycle, when you decide, when we ask them what they have learned about the topic, they also write questions for other groups. So you can turn this into a kind of fun activity where they start bouncing questions to one another. And very importantly, all this information, all this understanding of the content should be factored into the planning. No student feels engaged with a lesson that delivers content they have long since mastered. So this stage of planning also helps to confirm gaps in knowledge. Now, one of the things that all this will reveal, another thing that it will reveal, not only the gaps in knowledge, is if the materials are at an appropriate level. And we can adjust the material, as I mentioned before. For example, editing and adapting the level of the reading materials in the book, or the reading materials that you make available to the student. It can be from other books, from web pages, whatever extra you want to use. If they are using material that you feel may be too hard for the students, you can either pre-teach some of the vocabulary, or you can edit the material. How? Using online readability tests that are available for free on the internet. Here you have 3 possibilities. I use these 3 when I have to write my own books, or I write reading comprehension activities and workbook activities. What you do is very simple. You copy and paste the piece of text you are interested in assessing the level of, and you paste it in the tool, and the tool will automatically give you the level of the vocabulary and the structures. So you will be able to adapt, to edit either up or down, because you may be interested in giving the students a piece of text that you feel is too easy. Okay, you can put it here and try to improve it by adding more sophisticated vocabulary, or the other way around. I also mentioned worksheets and scaffolding cards. Let's see. I use this also a lot in my books. And what you can do is, sometimes we think we need to write a lot of things, we need to create a lot of material. No. Don't write worksheets or don't create worksheets at more than 3 levels of complexity. You can have the same worksheet at 3 levels. Worksheet A, the least challenging. I'm going to show you an example here of a piece of material I have recently written. The idea is the same in all 3. It's students have to remember the rules for the use of coordinating and subordinating conjunctions, right? All right. So worksheet A is for the lowest level, for the least confident, let's say, students, and it has the most support. Worksheet C has the least support, and it's aimed at the more confident students. And worksheet B is something in between. If you have a look here, I have a definition and I have the conjunctions. Here they have to choose the conjunction, and here they have no help at all. One of the things that you need to remember when you are creating these worksheets is make sure that all lead to the same learning outcome. As I mentioned before, it's not about giving the less confident student simpler or easier work, but making the content and the work more accessible to those who need more support. For example, you can also scaffold a question by splitting it into smaller parts or by giving hints. Or in another worksheet, you can pose a question in a direct way without any scaffolding or hints, right, for the most confident. Also, use codes when you're creating the worksheets. Use codes, colors, words, pictures, numbers, letters. And so in this way, learners, that is, you can assign learners to different pathways, but they are not discouraged by this thought of, okay, I always get the green card because it's for the stupid ones like me. No. Provide different coding so that you know what the pathway is, but the students do not feel that they are always given the same code, right? You can also provide scaffolding cards with sentence starters, yes, particularly when students are doing writing or speaking tasks. And these sentence starters can be generated by you or by the students. For example, they can be working in pairs or in small groups, and they can come up with suitable starters, yes? And you can change the exercise. For example, I use this a lot, I suggest this a lot when doing listening activities. Sometimes a listening activity says, answer the questions. And for some students, answer the question is a bit difficult. So instead of answer the question, I give them cards with a true, false, or a multiple choice exercise. So they are doing the same exercise, but with additional support. Instead of answer the question, for example, what does Tommy think about deforestation? Instead of that, it's Tommy thinks that deforestation is 1, 2, 3. So that's easier for the student than saying, tell me what he thinks, right? Now, when students encounter new ideas, new information, new skills, they need time to make sense of the materials before it becomes theirs. So this making sense, or this processing, is how students come to understand the content, and it is an essential component of learning. So how can we differentiate here? We can use, for example, learning menus. Learning menus are graphic organizers. They are made up of a different number of squares. It can be 6 squares, 12, 9. Each square is an activity, and the activities help students learn or practice a primary concept. And they have choice. That's important in differentiation. They have a choice. They can be instructed to choose one or more of these activities, and they can progress from one activity to the other, either in a linear, organized way or in random order. You decide. This sort of activity has been around for a number of years now, on paper, I mean. But now with digital tools, you can turn them into interactive activities, because you can include hyperlinks, and some activities can take them to a Jamboard, to word wall, to a website, to an interactive game. So if you can work online with your students, I mean, if you have to work online, this is great. And if you can work online with your students, even in the physical classroom, they can work in groups, and they can use these interactive activities that you design. And after a student has completed an activity on the menu, you can immediately assess what they have done, because it's quite easy. The activities shouldn't be very long. They can include tic-tac-toe boards, restaurant-like menus, multiple choice grids, a lot of options. They can also be given a learning menu structured like that of a dinner menu, with, for example, appetizers, first course, main course, dessert, whatever. And they can be instructed to follow the order of the menu just as they would in a restaurant. And within each course, they can choose from a list of activities. One thing to bear in mind, include well-defined descriptions of how to complete the activity. If maybe you want them to earn points, a certain number of points for the whole set of activities, indicate how many points they earn for which activity. And maybe, if necessary, the section of the book the activity covers, right? And tell them that at least one activity has to be completed for each section, although they can choose whichever they wish, right? With younger children, oh well, here, this one, I found this one on the internet. I love it. It's around the topic of beings, yes? So I wanted to show it because here you have a lot of different activities in each cell of the beehive. And also you can create similar thematic learning menus or inquiry boards, as they are also called, depending on the topic you are studying. You can create this, for example, in the belly of a dinosaur, if you are using a unit on dinosaurs. So I thought it was lovely. When I found it, I said, oh, this is really lovely. So you can decorate your inquiry boards or your learning menus depending on the topic of the unit you are working with. You can also, with younger children, you can also have the vocabulary man. For example, here you have a picture of a man, this sort of man, and on each section you have an activity. Each activity has a number of points. So you tell the students that they have to hand in, for example, they have to complete, suppose, 100 points worth of vocabulary practice at the end of the week. And you may put here all sorts of different activities at different levels of difficulty. So you see, for example, here is a very simple one. Pyramid your words and then draw S, so, soup. Sorry. So you can adapt this even for smaller children. An activity that I like, excuse me for a second. This is tea or beer. An activity that I like, but this here might depend largely on your context. It would be quite difficult to do in a large class, with a large class. If you have 30, 40 students, forget about this. And if the class is very small, forget about it. So it may not be realistic to do this in certain contexts. Learning stations are something that kindergarten teachers are quite used to working with. They are physical locations in the classroom where students are asked to solve a problem and answer some questions using the materials that you have placed in each station. They can work individually or in groups, and I suggest groups no larger than 3 or 4 students, otherwise it's chaos. Now, it's important to remember that learning stations need strategy. It's not like putting some activities at random on each table or in the corners of a room, hoping that students will stay on task and take something away from this experience. No, not at all. They have to be well designed. We have to also work at building a culture in which students stay focused and respectful. And more importantly, while they are doing their thinking in the stations, it's your job to make sure that they are on task, they are getting the practice that they want, and that misconceptions are identified. So you will be sort of going from one station to the other, providing support. Those people who say that group work is a wonderful opportunity for teachers to sit at their desk and relax have never been in a real classroom. Anyway, so some tips for an effective, in order to set up an effective learning station. Remember that they should be based on assessment data. Assessment, assessment, assessment. We need to know what our students need. Each station needs to have a problem for the student or students to solve. And there should be a learning goal, not just a collection of things that we have photocopied from a book. They need to be oriented towards a goal. They have to be fairly straightforward because learning stations, each station should not last more than 10 minutes. 15 minutes perhaps with older students. So you cannot expect students to do a whole project in a learning station. Students need to work with multi-level resources. So each station will contain a number of resources aimed at different levels. They have tiered assignments and activities that include varied student responses. So learners can respond to the activities in a number of ways. There is no one single way of responding to the activities. And the important concepts should be, that is, learners should be able to explicitly state the concepts. Now, another thing that I would recommend is tell students why they are doing these activities, so that they know, they are aware of the benefit of doing these activities, right? They are not just doing this because the teacher wanted. A very important element of differentiation by process is differentiation by questioning. Differentiated questioning. Now, the type of questions that we ask and the context in which we ask them is extremely important. It is said that in a class of 1 hour, we usually ask about 100 questions. So that would be 100 opportunities to stimulate learning, but at least 60% of those questions are recall questions. Between 12 and 30% are class management questions, and only 4% are higher order questions, which are the questions that develop deeper learning. And we usually aim these at the more able students. So, a few tips to ensure that we ask higher order questions. We have to plan them ahead. Plan significant questions that provide meaning and direction to the dialogue with the students. Use wait time, thinking time, and response time. I mean, one thing that we usually do is we ask a question and we expect students to put up their hands immediately. I think that the only question I'm able to answer automatically and without thinking is what's your name, not even my telephone number. So we cannot expect students to answer automatically. They need to think and then respond. Use the no hands up technique, and it means exactly that. You ask a question, allow thinking time, and only then identify the person who is going to respond. This is differentiation in practice because we are exposing all students to the question but targeting the response. Yes? Also, follow up on students' responses and ask probing questions. That is, series of questions which require them to go beyond the first response. Periodically summarize the key points in writing on the board so that they keep track of the discussion. Of course, draw as many students as possible into the discussion. And let students discover knowledge on their own. Let's not spoon feed the students. Sometimes we tend to spoon feed them. So, how do we plan the questions? Maybe you can think of the planning in terms of these 3 questions. Are there any students I particularly want to ask questions to? If so, which questions will I ask? You may have identified a very confident learner and you want to develop some challenging questions to ask them. And alternatively, there may be students who seem to be having difficulties and would benefit from supportive questioning. Now, what information would you like to elicit from students? What questions will help you? And finally, are there any particular types of questions I would like to ask? And if so, what are they? What are they? A good tool for asking questions or for planning your questions is Bloom's taxonomy. Yes? You know that it progresses from the knowledge phase to the evaluation stage, which is the more challenging. So what I suggest is use this taxonomy to do the work for you. I will show you in the references some web pages where you can find key verbs that you can use in order to ask the questions for the different levels of complexity. You can also do pair-share activities, think pair-share. This is learners think about a question individually for a minute or 2. Then they pair up with a partner and they share their ideas and they question each other's ideas. Finally, they form a group, or you have a whole class forum where they discuss and question each other's ideas. Another simple but effective activity is the show me, tell me, convince me. And here, for example, you can ask the students, can you show me what the answer is, or what you think the right way of doing this is? This would be the simplest form. A bit more challenging. Tell me why this is the right way to answer or to do this. And a bit more challenging, convince me that this is the right way to do it or the right way to answer. So you can ask less confident groups that show me question, while you can then jump to the convince me with learners who are showing real ability to do it. Another thing that I mentioned was differentiation by grouping. And many times we don't know how to group them. If it is, many people say, okay, group them, have mixed ability groups. Others, okay, then you have groups of similar ability. Well, grouping will depend, the way you group students will depend largely on the kind of activity that you want to do. Sometimes it's good to have mixed ability groups, because sometimes in a group, a very able student who gets top marks is horrible at using digital instruments, digital tools. So in a group, if they need to do something digital, maybe the one who is not so confident is a very techie guy who can help the others. So there will be one who is the techie one, another who likes public speaking, another who's good at drawing, another who's a leader. So you will decide what skills you want them to develop, and you will decide how to group these students. Finally, the products. For example, suppose you are working on a unit on sports, and after the unit on sports, students have to produce something. So you can differentiate the product. For example, group A can have a choice. For example, make a little book on a chosen sport or make a video presentation with basic information. Group B will have something more complex, while Group C will have only one activity, but really complex. So all of them will present a product, but they will have a choice and they will be challenged at their level of ability. So how can you decide, or how can you develop high quality product assignments? Decide on the formats the product will take. There are lots of things. For example, here, these are all things that we do or books bring as options in the units. So try to find ways in which you can differentiate this. Yes? Develop perhaps 2 or 3 options for products. Also, determine baseline expectations for quality. Clarify that students should pursue the type of quality, the level of quality learners should pursue. That it's not the same doing something in a rush just because the teachers want me to do this. And you can build a checklist of what a good product would look like. Suppose that they have to write a speech. Okay, with them, brainstorm, what would a good speech look like? Make a checklist, and they use the checklist to assess their own work. Also, determine how you will support them. Maybe with brainstorming, maybe with peer assessment, maybe with peer feedback. Help them relate the product to the real world, so that they see that what they are doing is not just a class of English. Encourage them to use and synthesize multiple sources of information. They do this sometimes in their own language, but they fail to see how to do it in English. Provide templates or graphic organizers so that struggling learners can go about doing creating the product in an easier way. Milestones, mini milestones. Instead of saying write a speech, say, okay, step 1, plan the topic. Step 2, brainstorm ideas, etc., etc. Steps for each activity. And give exemplars, that is, models of effective products from other classes, from previous years, or from the internet, as you wish. So, after all this, you will say, this woman is crazy, we cannot do this. Well, Piaget said that the heartbreaking difficulty in pedagogy is that the best methods are also the most difficult ones. And managing a differentiated classroom is not always easy, but the benefits are worth the challenge. So here are a few tips that you can use to meet the challenge. Yes? Have a strong rationale and share it with students and parents. Once they understand what you are doing, they will support you, I'm sure. Very important. Begin at a pace that is comfortable for you. Don't try to differentiate everything at the same time, because sometimes it's not necessary. Take small steps. Maybe select a few low preparation strategies and use them along the year, and use 1 or 2 high preparation activities that you can use in one term. But take it easy. Time activities, yes? That is, remember that the time allotted for a task should be a little less than the attention span of the student. So don't aim at very long activities. Create and deliver instructions carefully. Instead of giving the instructions to the class as a whole, give instruction cards to the different groups. Use bullet points. Make them simple, clear, simple language. Create a system to assign students to groups in a quick way, with colors, with name tags, with a poster for longer group work. Get help from the students. For example, if you have some students that want to ask you something, make it clear, have a kind of discipline. Make it clear that it's not good to ask to interrupt another student's work, and they have to wait until you have finished with one, yes? Or you may assign an expert of the day. Maybe there is a student who is particularly skillful at doing something, and so you can have this student as an assistant. Have a plan for fast finishers. Make it clear that you expect them to, okay, they are competent, but you expect some quality work from them. Promoting on-task behavior management, classroom management. Of course, giving students responsibility for their learning, promoting learners' independence, and talk to them. Talk about the classroom procedures, talk about what they expect from the work they are doing. Yes, and most importantly, plan, and share with fellow teachers. If you work in teams, this is going to be much, much easier. So that's all from me. I will stop sharing the screen now. Oh, before I forget, here are the references that I promised. I suppose, well, you can take a screenshot, or well, I can send if you need. I can send the slides, of course. These are the verb charts that I mentioned. These are places where you can find higher order thinking question stems. I use them a lot, Socratic questions too. These 3 articles are really useful, provide a lot of insight. And then thank you so much for inviting me. Here's my contact details, my blog, my LinkedIn, my email, and happy birthday, English departments. Okay, I will stop sharing the screen now. Let's see. Okay. Did I do anything stupid? I hope not.
No, not at all. It's been very interesting. We have people from all over the world listening to
lovely.
you, Annie. Yeah, people from Buenos Aires, Rosario, Vietnam, Panama, and Lebanon. So greetings,
my dear friends from Lebanon. Yes, there is a teachers association in Lebanon, the Alta Lebanon, and they are wonderful. They are really motivated teachers. I've got in touch with them by chance, and they are wonderful, very motivated teachers. So, well, Analia, maybe you would like to get in touch with them as a fellow teacher association. I will pass the contact if you wish.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
And Sally from Lebanon asks which KWHL chart you recommend best, because she uses them and she has that question for you.
Well, I normally use the first one with younger children, the first one I showed, the basic one, the KWL, and the 2-tiered chart with older students. Because of course, sometimes it's quite difficult to ask an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old reflection questions. So, or their reflection might be at a very simple level. I mean, I'm very much in favor of encouraging students, no matter how old they are, to reflect on their learning. But maybe that structured table would probably be a bit too much. So I generally use the simple one with the younger students or the less confident students, and the other with older students, for example, 10, 11, 12 on, which is not that young after all.
Right. Thank you. Well, apparently there are no more questions, but I wanted to point out that I found the learning stations fascinating, because I believe they really cater for this shorter attention span students have and this changing of things all over. So it's like having, I don't know, 4 or 5 windows open in the computer, but in the classroom. So
that's right. And you can do it online too. You can have these learning stations online too. And this is something that kindergarten teachers have been doing for ages. But I don't know why we don't do it in primary or in secondary. And some of the things that we do, like the learning menus or the inquiry menus, you can use them in those learning stations. So it would be something like having a learning menu in each learning station, and you will kill 2 birds with 1 stone if you wish. You don't have to prepare a lot of material. Yes, But one thing that I always emphasize is that they have to have a learning objective. You need to have a learning objective in mind, and they have to be carefully designed. As I said, it's not just like throwing materials on each table and hoping that the students will do something with that material. It's better to have less material, but carefully planned.
That's right. Sebastian is asking how online readability test tools work.
It's very simple. You click on that. There's a window that is they open, and they have a window, and in that window you paste the text that you want to assess, let's say, and immediately the system will show you if it is B2, C1, etc. They are very, very useful, really useful. I found them, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago. I was writing some reading comprehension material, and one of my editors told me, Annie, you're going to make your life easier if you use this. And so I started exploring the internet, and I found those three, that is, there are a lot, but I found those three to be particularly useful. They will give you, for example, there are some that give you in different colors, they give you the level of the vocabulary. So then you know, okay, if my students are, say, A2, well, I think of the Common European Framework. You are familiar with that, I imagine, and you work with that too. Yeah. So it's like, okay, this word is B1, all right, so I have to put it down. So I look for a synonym that is more within range.
Excellent.
And they are free. Right. These are free.
Jessica asked about the online working stations, and Gabriel suggested using breakout rooms in Zoom, for example, to work as...
That's right, that's right. When you work online with learning stations, you use workout rooms. Yes. And from time to time, you pop in to see what they are doing.
Exactly.
Yes, you use breakout rooms. If you're working online, you definitely use breakout rooms. Yes.
That's right. I think that will be all.
Okay.
Okay. So, all right, Annie. Thank you a lot. From the bottom of our hearts, we are really, really happy, yes, having you here today. It's been a pleasure to listen to you. We've learned a lot. Yes, you gave us new techniques. I'm sure there are a lot of students here listening to you, and well, I think this is great for them. Yes, for our prospective teachers, right?
Yeah, because they are our they are our inheritors in a way.
Right.
They are going to follow what we're doing. So, in this particular area of our work in differentiation, there is so much that we can do. But I insist, step by step, yes? Take small steps, because otherwise it can be overwhelming. And there are so many things that can be done, so many things. Well, it's differentiation and assessment are two areas I am particularly interested in. So it's something that I think has a lot of potential for the classroom.
Right. I agree, absolutely. Well, thanks a lot again, and thank you very much for the birthday wishes, right?
Hi, happy birthday to you.
Thanks. And thanks everyone, yes, for joining us today from all over the world, as I said. So it's been a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you for the invitation. It was lovely. Bye.